Hey YouTube, it's David from mdbootstrap.com. 2021 is about to over, so this is a high time to show you the new refreshed version of the frontend developer roadmap for 2022. So if you want to know how to become a frontend developer, web developer in coming year, you have to watch this video. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so before we start, one important remark is that you're gonna find all the important links down below in description to this video. You're gonna find the link to this roadmap so you can download it, so you can print it, so you can always have by your side. You're gonna find the link to all the tutorials where you're gonna learn all that stuff which I mentioned here. What else? You're also gonna find all the important links which I'll be talking during this video. So make sure to scroll down and check all the links after or during this video. Second important remark, as you can see, there is a small legend here which says which in my opinion is something you must know, which is good to know for you, and which are the extra possibilities, and we have also something extra for curious learners. So this is the second remark. The third remark, if you don't subscribe our channel, do it now, because most of the videos which covers all the stuff over here is on our channel, and some of those will be created very soon. So if you don't want to miss it, hit the subscribe button right now. Next remark, we're gonna start with some optional stuff over here, but all in all, I wanted to make this path as simplest as simple as possible for you. So obviously there is no simple answer how to become a web developer, because there are so many different options, and there are so many different technologies, and there are so many different technologies, or the end jobs you can possibly do, or projects you can work at. But I try to streamline all of those to create a single path for you, so you wouldn't have to bother with the unnecessary decision. So there will be some decisions for you, but at least till the very end I try to make this very simple for you. So simply follow these guidelines and you will become a web developer for sure. Now let's start with all this optional stuff over here, and I put it here up to the top of this map, so you can always have it by your side. What does it mean? What I mean by that is that, for example, this Git version control, we're gonna talk about it in a second. This is something you have to know as a web developer, but this is something you don't have to necessarily start with your journey. So all this stuff over here is something you should eventually know, but you don't have to start with it. And actually, if you don't have any experience in web development or programming at all, I would strongly encourage you to start with HTML first. And if you have already some knowledge, let's go through what I prepared for you. So starting with the Git version control, this is one of the tutorials. You're gonna find the link in the description down below. You should know at least these basics. So what it is, Git version control. So imagine you are doing your project. You started doing this, you are coding this right now, and you are doing this for, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 5 days, a week. And you start doing something different. So you build the first version, and then you start changing it. And after 3 days, you realize that, oh, this is a mess, it doesn't work. You want to get back to the previous version, and there is no option for you. So this is what Git resolves. So every time you are making change to your code, you can make a snapshot of it, and you should make a snapshot of it. So after 3 days, after 5 days, after 7 days, after a year, you can come back to and check how the code looked like on this very day. So if you screwed up something, if you changed something, or even if you just lost something, this is very important. Very often we lose data from our computers. If this is submitted to the Git, to the repository, it's not gonna disappear. There are much more than that, but long story short, you should learn Git at a certain point of time. Terminal.
This is something which you're gonna use on the more complex development when it comes to, let's say, backend development, or even the use of NPM. You're gonna use your terminal. I'm using Windows. This is actually the newest Windows 11 terminal. So this is command prompt. Each operating system will has its own, and you should learn how to use it. And actually, once you start learning this, you will realize that this is actually much more convenient than using your mouse. So definitely something to have on your roadmap. Data structures and algorithms, these are more not to say theoretical, but yeah, this is some knowledge which you should know, but this will be very useful when you start building more complex projects. We will start with something easy, with some small web pages, some portfolio, some simple application, but when it comes to more complex application, it's wise to learn more about the data structures and algorithms. Just to give you an example, if you have a lot of data and you want to show them in the table and then you want to sort them out, yeah, when it comes to a huge amount of data, you would like to use a proper sorting algorithm, and there are few, at least there are many of them, and you should know which one is better in which scenario. Licenses, so we are talking about software, so either you're gonna create a software and you should license it so others people know how to use it, how they can use it, or they can't use it, and the same applies to you. So if you are using something, you should know what actually the license means, so what the MIT means, and so on and so on, because maybe you are not allowed to use it, or maybe you are allowed under certain circumstances, so you should know actually what different licenses means. Semantic versioning, so you've seen that probably that something has version like 5, 6, 8, so you should also know what does it mean when it's going to get updated to 5.8.8 or 6.0.0. Again, bidirectional, so for you as a user who will be using someone else's software, and you're going to use someone else's software a lot as a libraries, as a dependencies, and the same for you. If you're going to create some library, if you're going to use some software, you should also use a proper semantic versioning for that. Design patterns, then again, it's more theoretical. When you build a proper app, there are already some patterns which some guidelines which are checked, which are confirmed, which are working. You should follow them. Character encoding, this is also when you're creating an app, just to make sure that your characters looks good to in all around the world. So you can imagine that there are some languages which are using some specific characters, and to make sure that they looks good for each and every user, you should know how to use proper character encoding. Learn to search for solutions. This is kind of a soft skill, and we're going to talk about it a lot in the other videos. There are obviously some really good books on programming, but nowadays I would say that most of the learning curve is happening online. So you need to know how to search for the new knowledge. You need to know how to search when you stumble upon some error. So how to use internet, where to search for the help, where to seek for help, and how to use internet. I would say that most of the time developers is actually searching or looking for some solutions, because you will be building some new solutions, so you will be continuously encountering new issues, and you should know how to find solutions for those. For browsers and the editors, there are a lot of videos over there. Let's make it short. For the browser, most of the users will be using nowadays a Chrome or other browsers which are based on the Chromium engine, and for the editors, I believe that the best choice will be Visual Studio Code. There are others, feel free to check them, but let's make it simple. Browser, Chrome, editor, Visual Studio Code. Now, before we move on, it will be wise to spend around 30 to 60 minutes to learn how the internet works, how the actually web browser works, what's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS, DNS, what's hosting is, and what are the different kind of hostings. You can skip it. You can go with it. It's up to you. Sooner or later, you'll have to learn it. So it's just up to you whether you want to jump straight into HTML or just want to do some pre-work for you. For the programming basics, this is I made a separate point for it because this is very important to mention that regardless of the programming language, some things are pretty much the same. Obviously, I want to say that all the programming languages are the same, because they are not. But the things like functions, like variables, like data types, like condition loops, these are all pretty much all the same in different languages. That's why once you learn how to code in one of the languages like JavaScript, you can really smoothly move into the other language, like PHP, for example. Obviously, there are differences, and there are different languages, and you use them in a different application and different use cases. But actually, the syntax will be different. You will be using slightly different words, or just comma instead of semicolon, but the basics will be the same. So functions will always accept some arguments and give you some output. The variables, there will be different kind of variables, and so on and so on. For loops, probably in each and every language you will be using loops to iterate through different kind of elements. So this is something which is very important and key. That's why it's right over here to learn, because this is what will give you the option to learn new thing much faster. Now let's jump directly to HTML. So the HTML is not actually a programming language, but this is a core for every web developer, because that's what we use to create an app, what we use to create applications. So we have a separate video where we're gonna teach you all of that, every single of this item here. For now, I just want you to know that you don't need to learn all of that by heart. This is actually happening automatically. So in the end, once you go through all the web developer roadmap till the end, and you will come back here and go again, it will be wise to make sure that you know most of the stuff over here. But what I mean to say is that if you're learning this, you are going to this section like layout and semantic, and then semantic HTML5, and then you will go through header, nav section, and so on. You don't have to know it by heart. It actually comes with the practice. What I mean to say is that once you start using this, when you start building more websites and applications, the one which are the most common and the most important at the same time, you will be using them most often, and at the same time you will learn them by heart. So like different paragraphs and headings you will know by heart, but it doesn't necessarily have to know how to use block code, because you can always Google it. So that's how it works. Once you know HTML, the basic HTMLs, go to CSS. And for all of you who have a kind of skill for that, or this is like kind of naturally comes to them, you can even do it within a single day. So you can have a basic of both. Obviously, you're not going to master them, but you will have some like basic understanding, and you will have this this level where even if you don't know something, you will always know how to Google it or how to find a proper tutorial where to learn it. Once you have it, I strongly encourage you to do some projects. So think about some website, a very simple one, without bells and whistles, just something simple, some simple navigation, maybe on top, maybe a side. Just try to different shape of your page, different structure, maybe one column, maybe two columns, and build something. Talking about it, you're gonna find a link to the project ideas which I prepared for you down below in the description. So most of the tutorials will tell you how to build a to-do app, and there is nothing wrong with it except for the fact that everyone is doing that. So I strongly encourage you to go one step ahead, and that's why I prepared and this project ideas for you, so we can choose one of those apps and to some extent build it. I'm gonna describe it later on in this video for you. So once we have it, let's jump to, we will get back to this project later on. Let's jump to JavaScript. So this is a proper programming language, and again, we are not going to go into details here because we have a separate video on JavaScript for you, but this is something you should learn. You should go through it at least once. And as I said, once you get the basics on JavaScript, you will also know and easily learn new languages. So once you have it, let's get back to this project. I suggest to use the quiz game app over here. Again, coming back to our project list, there is quiz test app. Long story short, imagine the application and use what you already know. So HTML and CSS, use it and build some dashboard like, you know, millionaire game or something like that, where you have a question and 4 answers. So you would have to already think, you have to already try to build it in the way that there are like, I don't know, 5 questions. Each of the question has like 4 answers, and there is only one proper answer to this. And every time the user is actually giving you a proper answer, you'll reward him with 1 point. And when he gives a wrong, it can be end of the game, or it can be like 0 point. Doesn't matter, it's up to you. You can, once you have the basic version, you can come up with something extra, like restart the game, play again, like maybe some leaderboard or something like that. So do it. Once you have JavaScript, the part of the JavaScript is the DOM manipulation, and I decide to put it aside because it's very important and you're going to do a lot of it. And even if that doesn't sound familiar at all, you have no idea what window object and DOM is, don't worry, it will come naturally. But keep in mind, it's something you should learn, because actually nowadays all the app is about this DOM manipulation. Because even think of it like this, imagine you have a snapshot of the Facebook at this very moment. When you start typing the command, when you're adding command, when you're adding like, when you're refreshing, you are manipulating DOM, because you are making your app to refresh, to add something. So as long as it's static, nothing change on the page, you are usually not messing up with DOM. But as soon as you want something to change on your website to make it dynamic, you will be actually changing DOM. So that's why it's important to learn it. Once you have it, let's do another project on DOM. Now let's move to the Tailwind and Bootstrap. So what's important to understand for you is like the programming is like a building a house. What you could technically do, and what's possible, is that you could build each and every brick by yourself, and then out of these bricks you could build walls, and out of walls you would build a house, and you put roof on top of it, and so on. That's one option. But the other option is actually to use some predefined, prepared, like, you know, walls or even the whole rooms, right? What I'm trying to say is that it's very important that every programmer should at least once build everything from scratch to understand how does it work. So you should build this house once, but you know, once you become a professional web developer, you will obviously, you're not gonna build everything from scratch, right? There is no point in doing this. The one of the key rules in programming is you shouldn't repeat yourself. You should reuse your code as much as possible. And you're gonna notice that after building the first, second, third, fourth, 10th project, when you start building the next one, you will see, oh, okay, I'm building the login panel. I've did it in the project number 7. How about I jump back there and just copy paste what I did, because there's no sense doing this again. And that's gonna happen to you often and often and often and again and again and again. And that's what happens to all the developers. And that's why there are libraries. So the libraries are the piece of the reusable code which was created either by you or someone else, and which will make your life much faster. That's why you should use libraries, because there is no point of doing this and again. And I could be talking long about that, why it's wise and smarter and more secure, but just please take it for granted. Learn how to use different libraries. One of the libraries is Bootstrap. So this is one of the most common framework nowadays, and you should I think it's very important to know how it works, to make use of it. Just to give you an example, you can create a simple button which looks nicely and which has nice animation, and then Bootstrap will offer you like tons of them, so you don't have to recreate them again. You will just use copy paste a simple piece of code and you will have the working button. So definitely try Bootstrap. Try Tailwind as well. This is new. This is booming recently. It has slightly different usage, I would say. I would use Tailwind in different projects. I think that Tailwind isn't good for a huge and complex project, but one way or another, get familiar with Tailwind, check 1 or 2 tutorials on Tailwind, because this is definitely booming in 2022. Get familiar with it, and then try to build responsive app. And when I'm talking about responsive, I should mention the responsiveness. If you don't know what it is, long story short, this makes your app look good on each and every screen size. So regardless whether you're watching or displaying your page on your brand new 4K 32-inch screen, or on the small phone, it should still looks good. It should behave like a water. So the water, when you pour the water, depending on the glass you use, it will automatically adjust the size. So if it's narrow, it's wide, it's whatever, it will always looks good. And this is what Bootstrap actually is about. So Bootstrap was become so famous because it allows you, it makes it much easier to create responsive website. Now, moving forward, all things which we've done until now was mostly one way. So we've been showing something to the user, we've been showing him some animation, doing something to him, showing, but there were no interaction with the user. And to make our website reactive, in a sense that customer, the user can give us some data to our app, we need to use forms. We need some inputs. If you are typing a comment on a Facebook, you are using a form. If you are sending an email, you are using a form. If you're using Gmail, you're using the form. If you are whatever. So forms are elements which allows us to actually get something from the user, get his name, get his text, get his message, whatever. So learn about forms and then build a simple project like BPM app. BPM is business process modeling. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit later when it comes to project. Now, when we can go from here, we could go to the other CSS frameworks, because Bootstrap and Tailwind are not only ones, but I think this is something which might be required depending on the project you build in the future. So there will be some projects where you will use Bootstrap over Tailwind, Tailwind over Bootstrap, and maybe you will use something totally different. It's just wise to get more familiar with this other CSS framework. Then when we move forward, it's important to learn about client-side storage. So what it is, long story short, this is a place where we can keep some data about our users. So whenever you are visiting some web page, and if you happen to enter some European Union web page, you would probably notice the kind of notice about cookies. This page is using the cookies. So the cookies are the smart kind of breadcrumbs which allows website to store some data about me. So if I'm coming to a website and it will ask me about the language, let's say it will check my IP and it will say check that I'm coming from US. It will say, hey, I think that US is your language, but just please do confirm it. So if I confirm it, it will write a small piece of data using on my computer, using my web browser, where it store language US or the location US. So the next time, every next time I'm visiting this page, it will first check whether this cookie exists, and if does exist, it will not ask me again. And the same with the login. You notice that you can be kept login into the page like Facebook, like Gmail, and this is possible because the small key is stored on your computer, which tells Gmail that's actually you who is coming back from the same machine. So it will let you log in automatically. Without going into details, very important, a lot of logic is built upon that. So learn about cookies, local storage, database, and so on. Then when we all know all of that, it will be wise to learn more about the web security, HTTPS, CORS, OASP, and more of that. We are not going much into details. This is as you can see, it's yellow, so it's not must have, but sooner or later it will be wise to get familiar with that. Another yellow thing is jQuery, and jQuery is like kind of a PHP. So if you are already in this development world, you know that PHP is a very old programming language, and every year we have the same discussion whether PHP is already dead or not, and you will find a lot of programmers making jokes about it, making fights between each other, but still many websites use PHP, and the same applies to the jQuery. So although it's very old and out to some extent. But old technology, it's been there for years. It's actually not even developed. Still, many pages use it. So I just think it will be wise to know how to use it, because it makes your JavaScript much easier. Again, you're not gonna use it. You don't want to use it for the huge projects, but maybe for some small pieces here and there. It's just good to know how to use it, and that something like this exists. Now we are moving to the very important stuff, which is AJAX. So you might not remember the internet from the times when every click was reloading the page. Nowadays, you go to the Facebook, you go to Gmail, and everything happens on the same page without reload. So you upload the attachment, you send the message, whatever, it just happens automatically, and this is possible with the AJAX. So this is the way to handle the request, and this is also where we're gonna learn how to make calls to the APIs and to get the response and to show it on the page without actually reloading this. So although it's granted now, you should still know how to actually do it. And then you have in combined with advanced forms, so the input validation and API communication. I should mention what the API is if you don't know. So the API is like kind of well, in the real world, you could say that API could be a harbor. So where you are sending calls, imagine calls as a ship. So every ship is going to the harbor and getting some information back, or maybe it can be shipping some information, leaving in the harbor and getting something else back, or it could be empty, going empty call and then doing something. So it's bidirectional information. This is how the application can talk to each other. So just imagine that you can have a weather or weather forecast API, which your application will call to get the current weather. Or you could have the currency exchange, right? So you have a website, you want to show the current currency or Bitcoin price. There is some page which is offering you an API, so you can make a call and ask, hey, give me the current Bitcoin price. Without going much into details, just check the description down below and you're gonna find the proper tutorial for it. Once you have it all combined, so advanced forms, do some project. So make some form with the validation, make some form with the call to API, make some form to store some data, just through trying to use it in a real development. Then maybe this is a good moment to talk about the basic deployment. So once you have some page, it's wise to know how to deploy it. And then again, you should know how to do it from scratch. So you should know how the domain registration works, what are the different kind of hosting, like managed or static hosting, how to enable SSL, what SSL is actually, how to connect via FTP, SSH, how to configure Apache engines and all that stuff, because the developer should have a broad knowledge or basics understanding of that. That doesn't mean that you're gonna do all that stuff, because nowadays with AWS and all this stuff, it's getting automated. But you should know how to do it. And once you do it, you can check solutions like mdbgo.com. You're gonna find the link description down below, where your deployment is gonna be as simple as just mdb publish, enter, and it's gonna do all that stuff for you. But again, as I said, I cannot stress more that you should know how to actually use it. Then we're going to learn about the package manager. So coming back to what we said about the Bootstrap, so you should use packages, you should use different libraries, because that is the best way to speed up your development. This is the best way to make sure that it's secure, because if you're going to use some library which is known for having the secure login form, you have like million users using that. At the same time, you are kind of sure that it's gonna, as soon as there is some issue with it, one of these 1 million users will basically tell everyone, hey, this doesn't work, fix it. And if you're gonna do it all by yourself, you're gonna realize that you'll have to make a lot of mistakes just to learn, right? That's typically what's happening. So every time we are doing something for the very first time, we are just making some mistakes, which makes our software insecure. So you should use libraries, but the more you use them, it's getting more difficult to work with them. So for example, you download the Bootstrap version 3 and all of a sudden there is the new version Bootstrap 3.1. So what you have to do, you have to download new version Bootstrap 3.1.0, and then you have to replace the files and so on. it's become really pain in the ass. So that's why package managers came to existence, where you will just simply tell them, hey, give me the newest Bootstrap, and it will take care of all the updates, all the dependencies. If Bootstrap relies on Popper, and it does, you would have to download Bootstrap and the Popper, and now these relations can be very, 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 very long and complex, and npm or yarn will basically take care of it, and it will install all the dependencies, and it will also keep your project updated. Moving forward, and then go to CSS preprocessors. CSS preprocessors like SAS provide you with, it's actually leveling up the CSS. For you, it introduces things like nesting, module, functions, so things which are not in the CSS, allows you to create hell of different new classes, properties, and make them automatic, and also allows you to customize it. So, just imagine that you have a page, and with the use of SAS, you can simply change 1 or 2 or 3 variables, like the basic color. Let's say the page is bluish, and then with the single change, you can change all the website around you to the new color, or to different gradients, or to whatsoever. Just keep in mind this is the level up. And as example, you could just use the theming in MDB. So you could just download MDB for free, and then go to the CSS variables, play with it, and see how does it affect your app. Moving forward, tooling. So very important part of being a developer is making your life easier, automating the things. So for example, you will find like these extensions to your text editor, like Emmet, which will basically write code for you much faster, or it will format your code automatically, so you don't have to like make sure that your code is aligned properly with all the spaces and brackets. It will make it for you. So try to be a lazy developer, try to automate as much as possible, and we have a separate video on Emmet for you on our channel. Moving forward, we'll move to the bundlers, which is already a little bit advanced. So without coming into details, as soon as you get here up till this level, you will probably understand why using bundlers is important. And yeah, now it's decision time. So from now on, you have a very solid background, solid foundation of your web development skills. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a lot of different features, a lot of different technologies, which allows you to build the pages. But building huge pages, complex pages with just the pure JavaScript might be a little bit challenging. So what I encourage you to do here is to choose one of the technologies. And actually, instead of choosing, what I would suggest is to go through the Vue course and do some app or project. Do React code, React tutorial, and do the same app, and then go with the Angular and do the same app, and you will have a feeling what's the difference between all those frameworks or libraries. I'm not want to go into discussion what's framework, what's library. That doesn't matter here. Some people argue about it. What I'm trying to say is I can tell you the difference. I can tell you that the React is the most popular at the moment. The Vue is booming, and it's very lightweighted and easy to use. And Angular is one which is used for the very complex projects, but that's not gonna tell you anything. So instead, I really strongly encourage you just to spend like 1-2 days with Vue, build some app. 1-2 days with React, build the same app, and the same with Angular, and then you will have the best feeling which one suits you best. Moving forward, you should definitely jump into the Jamstack afterwards and get familiar with it, because that's gonna be definitely a booming subject in 2022. And then the next steps will be get familiar with the build tools like Gulp, like Grunt, like linters. We talk about that. And then, although you the programmer and tester are two separate roles in the web development, again, the web developer and any developer should have a basic knowledge about testing his own code. And talking about testing, I'm talking about the concepts like unit testing, behavior testing, integration, end-to-end testings, which libraries and tools to use. And just to make clear, just to make sure, in a huge projects, you have a team of testers who are testing your code, and you have a programmers who are actually creating this code, but still it's very important for the programmers to know how to write test. Why? Long story short, imagine you have like 10,000 lines of code and you are fixing something in the line number 5, but because of the dependencies, that will break something in line number 700. And once you do that, you will have to come back and fix it, and then maybe in 3 months you're gonna change something in another line, which is gonna broke something else. If you would have tests for each of the function, as soon as you change this line number 5, you fix it, but you broke the line number 700, when you run the tests, you would immediately know that, oh, I fixed this, but I broke something else. So without that, you're not gonna know that. You just focus on what you are fixing. You are going to production, and you might screw up the entire project. Imagine you are doing the bank app, and all of a sudden the whole banking system stops because of your mistake. So that's why it's very important to know how to test and to do testing. Progressive web app. Long story short, this allows you to install your web pages as an application on the phone. Very interesting trend. It allows your application to work offline, so get familiar with that. You can do it in any of the technology. Same applies for the server-side rendering. Long story short, whenever you are visiting some page, what happens is the page is being downloaded to your browser, and then all the magic happens, all the calculation happens on your PC. With the server-side rendering, what happens is actually you have a server, a massive server, which is doing all the calculation. So when you try to visit the page, instead of loading the entire source code and doing calculation at your end, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna be all the page is gonna be rendered at the server side, and you're gonna just get the result, which is much smaller and much faster. So you can imagine that instead of downloading like 100 megabytes, you will just download 1 megabyte. So it's like, I don't know, with the Google Stadia or NVIDIA this game solutions, where instead of having and having your game running on your PC, actually the game is running on the server, and you just see the result. And finally, it's important or a kind of a natural step for you. Actually, there are a few natural steps, because after becoming a front-end developer, you can start your backend journey, and then you're gonna become a full-stack developer, or you can go totally somewhere else. That doesn't matter. There is no bad or good choices here. Each of them is just different. So one of the options would be go with the mobile application development. So you can do it with the React Native, Flutter, or Native Script. So this is one of the option. The other option will be go to with the desktop application. So there are many desktop applications nowadays which are built with the use of the tools which we just discussed. One very important here is the CI/CD. When it comes to the huge projects, when it comes to the personal website, probably you're not going to use it, but when it comes to bigger project, continuous integration, continuous delivery, this is something you should also get familiar with. And finally, remember that as a programmer, your path is continuous learning. It's all about learning. And I know developers who are working for 20, 25, 30 years, people who've been programming in COBOL, very old programming language. And I know that this path like never stops. There is something new, always something new. There are always new libraries, there are always new trends. Being programmers means you always keep on learning. So this is very, very important. Finally, let me quickly go through the project ideas. Let me quickly explain what I mean by that. So CRM, Customer Relationship Manager. So this is a project where basically you have a contacts list. So you have a person ABC, and you keep track of all the relation, which means a contact. So it could be like, you have a list of people and you can assign it some interaction with the people. So for example, you can have a call, you can have mail, you can have message, you can have whatever, right? So very simple would be just person and the list, like just list. When you type I called the guy, he called me, I mailed him. The more complex, obviously you can always make any of those applications very complex. So the more complex will be some automated way, maybe some integration with the API. Very complex one would be to connect it with SMTP, via SMTP with your Gmail or your mail app. So every time someone is mailing you, you will get the note into your CRM system. To do, everyone, you will see a lot of projects about it, everyone doing that. So to the app where you can just add new to do, check as a done, and then remove. Mentions monitoring, that is a quite complex one, but you could try to either use APIs of Twitter or Facebook, or maybe do some crawling mechanism. So you would be searching a web for mentions, for example, for your name and surname, or for some technology, and get all the, let's say, get all the tweets about React within last hour. MailChimp. So this is actually the for the newsletter sending. So you have list of, so this is actually nice because you can start with the form where customer can subscribe to your, imagine you have a page, your homepage, your personal blog, and everyone who wants to get the notification whenever you create something, he leaves you his name and the email, he subscribed, this data lands at your end, and then to all the people subscribed, you have a small form and you can send them the email with the subject and the body. App for insurance or renting companies. So this is BPM, business process modeling. This is to master your forms. So think of different kind of forms. Imagine that you want to have, I don't know, you want to buy insurance for your car, or you want to rent a car. So obviously you will have some dates, start, end, some models, some brands of the car, and so on. So think of some complex and make it even more complex with every question. Survey, app design, collection, visualizations. This is huge. So you can start with the simple survey. So build like hard-coded survey with three questions, right? One open questions with the text, one question with two options like yes, no, and one with the multiple choice, and then submit it and send it to your backend. You can also go further. So you can make it, once you know how, for example, how to make things draggable, you can create the app which allows you to create those forms. So you can have like three predefined questions. So simple, close, open, and the customer will drag and drop this to the pool. So he will design his own pool. Once you collect the data, you can try to visualize them with some charts. Invoicing app. Again, it's about kind of BPM. So come up with some simple form which will generate invoice for you. You can keep track of the ID, keep track of the customers. You can make it more complex with every iteration. Mind map, something like this. So just to create more nodes, and you can try different designs. Live call, this is very simple. This used to be some hack in the last year when you have a form saying, hey, leave me your phone number, we're gonna call you back in 26 seconds or 30 seconds or 1 minute. So whenever someone is leaving so create a form, like a pop-up form, and whenever user provide the mobile phone, you should notify someone that he should call him. LMS, which stands for Learning Management System. So think of some app which allows you to go through some course. So for something very basic, you have a course with different lessons. So you have a lesson 1, text, next, and as soon as you click next, the lesson is marked as a complete. And then again, you can make it complex with adding some more logic, like some question at the end of each course or something like that. Ticketing system. So imagine for the ticketing, I mean like issues tracker. So you have a company and your customers can create an issue. So they have issue with your product, so they will create it. They will choose one of the category. This and will end up in the system, and then this will remain as an open issue, and you can assign this issue to one of the employee, and this will and then the employee can do something with it. You can reply, or he can close it, or whatsoever. Now, one important thing here is that some of the app might sound like they require a database. and you can do it with the database, but you can also use some APIs. So there are different APIs which allows you to store the data, or you can simply just mock up this. So don't connect it, just have a form which will be saving the data, and then from the JSON file, for example, just read the data. If you don't know what JSON file, don't worry, this is part of the JavaScript, or just kind of hard code it. So make this app living only during the browser. So when you submit something, it will stay in the memory. So you can add like to-do list 5 items, and when you refresh page, they are all gone. That's fine, don't worry. The database is the next step. So for all of that, you can just have it. You can easily do all of them without knowing the database and storing that. Communicator, so this is more with the AJAX call. So you can have 2 windows, and when you type in one window, it will send it to another one, and when you type in the second one, it will send it back to the first one. E-commerce, so this is more complex. So you can have like a store, so you can have some products, and just try to design the proper e-commerce in a sense that you have a very basic shop with 1, 2, 3 products. When you add it, you specify the quantity, you specify the price. When you add it to the basket, you can have 1 or 2 products, and you go to checkout. So just try to play with it. Calendly, so just try to play with the visual calendar. So and you can have a booked, some pre-booked dates which cannot be booked, and in every single or available date, you can just book meeting and create it. Quiz test app, we discussed it. Email verification app, so try to verify an email. So get a bunch of emails. Let's say someone is sending you 10 emails, and you are making sure that those emails exist. So you can check whether there is @ whether it's dot, whether it's domain, and so on. Feedback typo collection, that would be something that, imagine you are just browsing someone's page, and you have a plugin where you can just select some text, and now you will get the context menu to suggest addition or suggest some typo, like context menu, and this will send notification to the author that it should be fixed. Onboarding app. So this is something where you've seen it probably on some different systems, where when you open a page for the very first time, you get the small pop-up with like few steps. You usually have something like, you can see it in the games, right? So let me teach you how to use it. So this, for example, and you would have some screen here saying, okay, so this is the home page. Then you click next, and you pop up here. Here you can log in, log out. Here you can publish, and so on. So this is kind of onboarding. Traffic user analysis, so try to see what kind of data you can get from the browser. Slack bot, this is more advanced. Social media manager is about API, so you can create an app which will allows you to see all your tweets, Facebook posts, Instagram, whatever, in one place. Knowledge base, so something like Confluence, where you can add pages and store the data, and CMS for content management systems like a WordPress. So again, imagine you have a blog and you want to have a different blog post and edit them. Very simple, but a real example of the real app. Okay. So this is more or less it. I think it's a lot, but I'm sure if you go through all of that and you spend enough time on that and you will commit yourself to that, you can become a web developer in coming 2022, which I wish you with the bottom of my heart. And the last message is, don't be afraid and don't get distracted, don't give up. I mean, being a programmer is a continuous fight with issues, with problems, with errors, and this happens all the time. So it's gonna happen for sure. For sure, you're gonna stumble upon some issues. For sure, you can stuck at something, but believe me, this is normal. This is normal. Every developer, including myself, been there. So there are issues which you're gonna spend like 1, 2, 3, 5 days or a week, and finally you're gonna find that this stupid comma or stupid error where you try to add or divide by 0 or something like that. That was the result, and you're gonna be very demotivated. But keep in mind that this is normal. This is really normal. That's why it's so important to learn how to search for solutions, learn how to search for help. If you need any help, don't hesitate to join our Facebook group where where our team, the whole team, is there to help you with your development. So finger crossed for that, and I wish you all the best in coming 2022. If you want to get more tutorials, to learn more, not only this path but also the others, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit this notify button, and keep coding.